Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and welcome to our final session at the IW Speaker Series. My name is Commander Laura Steger. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for Naval Information Forces. And this morning, I'm pleased to introduce our panel moderator, Ms. Tammy North. She's the Director of Information Warfare Readiness at NAVI-4. So she's responsible to the Navy's IW Type Commander for IW readiness across the Navy, including fleet units, such as Naval Computer and Telecommunications Area Master Stations, Naval Telecommunication Stations, and Maritime Operations Centers. Also, for afloat IW readiness in support of the information warfare commanders and their teams in carrier strike groups and amphibious ready groups. Ms. North has served the Navy for more than 30 years, as an enlisted sailor, a cryptologic warfare officer, and in civilian federal service. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. North.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Laura, for the wonderful introduction. And for the next hour, I have the distinct honor of moderating a conversation with these incredible leaders. These four leaders represent the best and the brightest across our information warfare community. But when you take a moment to fully digest what each of these leaders is actually responsible for now, or what they have been responsible for in the recent past, it is mind-blowing. And that's one of the things I really want you to focus on as you listen to their conversations today, is just how vast the information warfare community is and how essential it is to continued operations going forward. You've heard other information warfare leadership who've been speaking on this stage over the past few days, and it cannot be ignored that information warfare capability has been at the heart of almost every interaction this week and on every stage across West 2024. The information warfare, it continues to stand as both the foundation for all warfare areas and simultaneously drives the most exquisite capability, which will assuredly result in decisive outcomes for our Navy. So please allow me to introduce our distinguished panel of IW commanders. Each esteemed member of this panel has served in numerous impressive joint, afloat, and command positions. First, to my right directly, Captain Kelvin McGee. He is currently the Commodore of NetWarCom, and he's responsible for executing tactical level command and control to ensure the continued operation and maintenance of secure Navy communications and network systems for the DoD. And among his tours, he has most recently also served as the commanding officer of NIOC Bahrain. He is an IP officer. And then Captain Christy Montgomery. She also has quite the inspiring bio. She is currently the Information Warfare Commander for Carrier Strike Group 12. And I'm really excited to have her on this stage today because she is freshly returned from the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group deployment in support of 5th Fleet and 6th Fleet operations over in the Red Sea. Her previous tour was as a commanding officer of Fleet Numerical Meteorological and Oceanography Center in Monterey. Like Captain Roth was just previously briefing, that was her previous position. And she is a METOC officer. And then we have Captain Edward Doc McClellan. He is currently the 3rd Fleet in 2, and he's really been doing a lot of work with IW in the MOC, and that's really, so I'm excited to have him on this panel for that purpose, among others. And he is also headed to be the Information Warfare Commander on Carrier Strike Group 9. He'll be the IWC. And among his previous tours, he also served as the officer in charge of C&O IP with Admiral Gilday, and he's an intel officer. And then Captain Select Sarah Sherwood, she is currently the director of NIWIDIC West, and she just turned over the role as being the Information Warfare Commander for FIBGRU 7, where she deployed last year with the Makin Island ARG over the 22-23 time period. Her previous tours include U.S. Naval Forces Korea, where she served as the ACOS for Intelligence and also the N6A cause. And she was also one of the first cross-detailed officers to command NIAC Bahrain. She's an intel officer. So with that, it's very impressive, and I look forward to hearing what you all have to say. So with that, let's get to the first question. So for the audience, I'm going to ask some questions, but toward the end, I'll make sure I leave at least 15 minutes for you to ask questions. But if you have something you really want to ask, I'll kind of keep my eyes out, and I may go out to the audience if there's an emerging question. So the first question for the entire panel is, can you please explain your portion of the information warfare ecosystem that you have been or are responsible for from your perspective? Explain how your portion of that ecosystem integrates with each other's ecosystems. We'll start with Kelvin.
Okay, can you hear me? Well, first of all, thanks again, Tammy, for that introduction. And it's a pleasure to be up here and be one amongst this elite, esteemed panel of shipmates. So thank you again for that. Well, first of all, someone has to keep the lights on for my panel mates here, and I think that starts with me. And as my predecessor, and I think he said it came from now, Kaz Hicks, the analogy we like to use at Navy Network.com and NCDOC is, at Navy Network.com, we build a house, we furnish the house, we put the alarm system in, and then when something bad happens, we call on NCDOC. They come to our rescue. They come running in. They look for the bad guys. They do whatever they have to do to hunt them, and once they got them all out, they turn it back over to us. So, and then you know, we are the foundation of the community and what the Navy build on. So we constantly are looking at ways on improving, and we work with all other aspects of the IW ecosystem to ensure that we got that model right. So that's how we, our input at Navy Network.com along with NCDOC. And we also operate, maintain, secure, and defend the network.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelvin. Thanks. So, Christy Montgomery, thank you so much for being here to listen to us today. I want to actually expound on the house analogy. I told Doc I was going to say that my point in the ecosystem is that I'm the most important. But in the house analogy, I'll use it as we are the needy renters that live in your house. And we're going to call you when there's absolutely any kind of issue and the lights don't turn on, or you live in Mississippi and there's a snake in your backyard and you don't understand why. Like, we are going to consume everything that you have to offer and ask you for more all the time. But in reality, it's the services that start with what Kelvin's team does ashore that make all of our jobs possible, whether at the operational level of war or out at the tactical edge, trying to influence decisions, support our warfare commanders, and make sure that we are at the point where our nation needs us at any time and any place.
Okay, good morning. Thanks very much, Tammy, for putting this together. And I know that this is an open question here, so as always, I beg your forgiveness because I do have a few thoughts on this. So I'm at Third Fleet. I wear two hats. In our sort of Napoleonic code structure, I'm the N2 and the 3-9, so intelligence and information operations. But as Tammy suggested, we are working towards the consolidation of what it means to execute information warfare through a MOC. In that regard, I wear a second hat where I am the Deputy MOC Director for Information Warfare. If you take a look at NWP 3.0, we've sort of redefined the levels of warfare. And if you think of ESH-2 as executing the operational level of war, then the ESH-3 maneuver elements are really fighting at what we'll call a high tactical level of war. I think the CNO has made some comments about the MOC being what the CSGs used to be, meaning the central node in this execution of high tactical warfighting functions. So pulling together the strands of IW mean I am the happy recipient of all of the hard work of I4 and the Syscoms, the NavNet Warcoms of the world, but I have to translate that into operational effects. So there are some specific things that we do, but if you sort of lay out the kind of functions that you would assign to a strike group and elevate that up one echelon, I have to replicate that through a mock. The original design of a mock was really as a decision support tool. We plan, we write orders, and we help the 3-star make resource allocation decisions. Third Fleet had a specific role there. Obviously, we have a force generation role as well as operational C2. The force generation business continues on apace. We also have to train ourselves how to execute all of these functions at that level of warfare. Some of the new things that we've had to invest in is over-the-horizon targeting. How do we execute that at the operational level of war when the strike groups are unable, for various reasons, to be able to execute that function? If you think about in terms of network defense, how do I ensure that that's happening in a designed way across all of the fleet assets simultaneously? So those are the sort of problems that we're working through. If you had a chance to listen to Admiral Boyle on Tuesday, he'll tell you the way that we're doing that is through fleet rehearsals. Not large-scale command post exercises where we're generating PowerPoint slides to help the next echelon make decisions, but rather how do we actually create the effects on the battlefield that we're seeking to achieve? So we did this in Joint Battle Problem 24 TAC 1. We did it with the Vinson Comp 2X. We'll do it with Abe Comp 2X. So that's my role.
Thanks, Doc. So yes, thank you, Tammy, and thank you, esteemed shipmates. It's an honor to be sitting here today. So as Tammy had suggested in my bio, I was the IWC for Fibron 7, just came back this summer, and then went down to work as the director of FIWIC PAC Australia, working with our Australian partners to help them establish their IW forces. And now I'm the director of NIWIDIC West. And so going back to the analogy of the house and the needy renter, a strike group has a lot of things and a lot of toys and a lot of attention. And ARGMU maybe does not have as many, so we are super needy. But I would say that that was the support of the SHORE team from the NavNet Warcoms, the NICTAM PACs of the world, and then the mocks of the Doc McClellans and the mock directors is everything that we need. I mean, whenever we needed something, we had to call, and when we didn't have it and they couldn't answer it, then we were feeding it back up to the I4s of the world and the NIWIDICs. So I appreciate where now I sit in the ecosystem, having been the needy renter, having looked at all the needs I need, and now to sit at NIWIDIC West as a director to try to solve all of those needs so that future ARGMUs and future strike groups, because they have very many of the similar needs despite having lots of toys, to try to get after that. And then eventually I will take over as the commander for Center Information Warfare Training down in Pensacola, so I'll back down to the A&C school level. So I think that's kind of where I sit in that whole piece.
I have an alibi, Tammy, if you don't mind,
go
really
ahead.
quick.
Yes.
So I think one of the important things that you might want to take away, especially from what Doc said about the work that he's doing at Third Fleet, is that the information warfare community investing in information warfare commanders is putting an integrator at the point of decision making. And for a very long time in the fleet, that integration didn't exist at that fleet level. And so now, through the work of NAVI-4, through the work of the Fleet Forces Command and PAC Fleet, they're directing that sort of integration at the MOC level. And so you have a nice continuity of understanding of information warfare across the continuum from what our shipmates are supporting us ashore to the MOC, to the strike group or the amphibious ready group level. So that there's a common language, a common understanding, a common integration piece that's going across, and I think that's a really important piece to take away. It's the feelings and trust aspect of integrating information warfare, not just the technological aspect of it. And I think it's a really important way forward.
Here.
All right, thank you, Christy. Thanks to everybody. Those are great answers. So, what do you think, as you think about over the past 5 to 7 years, what has been the most innovative thing that has occurred in information warfare, or the biggest, the most important evolution over the past 5 to 7 years? You want to start with Kelvin, or anyone?
Okay. It's a lot of things that I could talk about, but since I took over at Navy Net WorldCom and been in the seat a little over 90 days, I would have to say it's zero trust. The architecture for zero trust is what I would say is the biggest thing. If you sit back and think about it, back in the day, and even now, that we locking down networks. When you lock down networks, people get upset. Sailors, they lose their MWR capability. I mean, you got sailors on ships trying to take PACE courses, trying to do certain things, and you lock them down. But when you sit back and look at what zero trust and the zero architecture does for us, it gives us the capability, because we automatically have to assume that the adversary is always in the network. So with zero trust, it gives us the capability for continuous authentication, continuous monitoring, and with that, that gives us the capabilities to give our sailors and our warfighters the capabilities that they need. And I will tell you that even myself, even on travel, no matter where I go, I always have my 100 gigabyte hard drive that's from OneNet with me because of zero trust. And this is something that all those that telework today have gotten used to, and it's a known good thing for them with that. So zero trust is the future. I think you're going to continuously see us rolling that out and continue working with the program offices to continue to make that better.
And Christy?
So I know it's beyond the 5 to 7 year time frame, but I think the creation of the information warfare community, what used to be called the Information Dominance Corps, but the creation of the information warfare community and then the stand-up of the information warfare TICOM, we are all dedicated individuals, and we all are, in some manner, shape, or form, probably overachievers and type A, so we want everything to be perfect right now. But the knowledge that if we give ourselves some grace and understand that we are moving in the right direction, that creation and that identification of a single point and a single advocate and identification of the importance of information warfare in the future of naval warfare and joint warfare, I think was really foundationally set in stone at the creation of the community and the TICOM.
That's a great response, and I have to say I agree with that. Just having been in the community for over 30 years, that where we are today is pretty remarkable. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Don.
I'd actually like to expand on that because, like all of us, we were there in the room where it happened, and I also did the online course where I, clicked through. I could identify where the METOC community was headquartered, and became an information dominance officer. What I think really has evolved is the understanding that there's an additive capability that we bring. So each of our communities were expert in their silos. What we have ultimately identified is that electromagnetic warfare, maneuver warfare, didn't fall neatly into anyone's bin. Now we recognize it falls into all of our bins. And so any community can serve as an information warfare commander, and we all do it. Yep. And so we're working towards the right kind of training and the right kind of job track to put you into the position where you understand this environment sufficiently that you can integrate these capabilities. That never would have happened if we hadn't come together as 4 sub-tribes in a single warfare community. So I think that's really the most significant. Not just the establishment, but the evolution of that responsibility.
Love it.
It's tough to be at the end because I looked over at Doc's notes and was like, shoot, some of the parts, that was mine. But I will just say, so I came in I'm an intelligence officer, but I was a late lat transfer. So I came in right at 2010 when we had this idea to become information warfare commanders or information dominators, as it was. And what it appeared at the time, as has been alluded to, is it was three parts. You had the N2s of the world, the Intels, the CRIPPs, the METOC, and the IPs. And so when I went to CNFK, Admiral Boyle at the time had just come out of the Pentagon. And so when our N6 was going to be gapped, he said, Sarah, can't you just do the N2 and the N6 job together? And I said, yeah, sure, I can figure this out. That's not quite that easy. And I was literally just two ACOSs smashed together. I wasn't integrating anything. And so I would say the investment in the IWC billet, so as Christy and then Doc have said, the integrator is important, the sum of the parts, but you can't just bolt on the IWC to the N2, or you can't just bolt on the IWC to the N6. An IWC in that position is not effectively doing their job of the integration. They are literally just trying to keep the lights on, the CAS reps down, the whatever is happening going on. They're not actually able to have that headspace to think and tie all of the parts together. So I would suggest that, and I know that the surface warfare community just did invest in 8 billets for the ARG IWCs, so those are coming forward, and obviously the CSGs have theirs, and we're getting a IWC billet at Strike Group 15, so it's not the N2 trying to be the IWC, it's really building that next level so that we have that integrator that then, as Christy said, has now also been tied through the different levels so that they have somebody to talk to.
I want to follow that up. At the mock, obviously, I talked about the Napoleonic structure, but then also this additive responsibility as the IW director. I think we're making it work right now, but certainly there's so much going on the force generation and the fleet management side that takes away from that mock level responsibility. And so identifying someone and putting someone in that specific billet, I think ultimately is something we should. Okay, that's a good point.
I would just add 3 seconds that it also eliminates the need for that person to be the N2 and the IWC. Right. Because when you see the N2 walk up to you, all you see is intelligence walking up to you. You don't necessarily see that integration. And when the IWC walks up to you, you're like, oh, I don't know what this person's going to bring me, but here we go. They'll say something. So that, I think, is also the critical piece. Yeah. Sorry.
Awesome. Thank you. There is an audience question, if we can. It's right over here.
Good morning, everybody. Lieutenant Commander Andrew Wyman, the Fibron 7 N2, and had the pleasure of working for Captain Select Sherwood on deployment on Macon Island. All four of you panelists and Ms. North, you've all spoken about kind of the IW as that collective team. One question I have is how can we better train our collective teams as our own pillars get more and more technical, right? So Kevin McKee, you talked a little bit at the beginning of you have a problem, you have a threat, you pass it up to NCDOC. NCDOC does its thing and then kind of passes it back to you when they say you're either clear or not. Our experience on deployment, I'm not sure my ISs would have had the skill to be able to properly analyze that threat and then provide us with the on-site feedback. And it sounds like even at the upper echelons, we're kind of experiencing the same types of issues or concerns. And I just wanted to know if you had any thoughts or ideas of where we might best fit some of those trainings and developing those IW-wide skill sets into people's career pipelines and in their experiences.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that. No, you're spot on, and that is something that I think about daily. Especially for the time that I've been in the Navy. One of the things that I recall in the day is we had a better training pipeline, and the sailors that we're bringing in now, they're smart, they're bright, they're a lot smarter than I ever will be, and we have to get them that training. And I will say that. Vice Admiral Ashback, that is one of her priorities, is training, and that is being looked at. And also even Vice Admiral Clapperton. And to go back to yours in that particular spot, as far as the relationship that me and Commodore Pender have with being able to, her be my CSSP, she's everyone's CSSP for the Navy. So one of the ways that, for your team and all, is we're looking at the SOC. we got a socket like for our NCTSs, and they're going to be your first point of contact. We're trying to give them more tools and capabilities to be able to help the fleet units. And then, at the end of the day, we can also do that cross training too until we can get the training that we need in the schoolhouse to make sure that all the ITs. Hopefully that answered your question.
I think I would also add, NIWITIC is looking at an IW training team, much like the Intel team trainers, and they are building a live virtual construct that I was able to see last week, and it actually does bring in all of the IW positions, India, CES, Quebec, comms, all those guys are in the room, and the TAOs and the PTOs, so that you can actually not just do IW in a bubble, because as we know, I like to be called, IW is FOMO, and we have the fear of missing out. We touch everything. If you can see it, hear it, sense it, feel it, and then what you can't, yep, we own it. It's ours to manage, monitor, build, do whatever with. So we are building, that LVC is coming. It is not online yet. It is looking to go to various fleet locations, and I think they're probably going to start in San Diego, but that has been heard, and that is where they are going. We just need it faster, funnier now.
Yeah. So I thought that I was going to steal her thunder here, but obviously the WITI program, I'm a huge fan of the IW WITI pipeline. We're getting these folks out to the fleet with the latest information. I mean, the work that NIWITIC is doing in generating TTPs at speed right now, really quite critical. But just like in any other warfare designator, the only way you bring that to the individual unit is through an individual who is trained, a patch wearer, who can then respond to events in real time, and then train the team in place. So I think expanding the WITI program, continuing to invest in that is the answer.
And then I think if you were to turn our current tribal training paths on their heads and shake them all up and filter it out, you would find that information warfare communities are all data-centric. And if you started into the community with a very strong training and language building in what data science is, data proficiency, data types, as your foundation, and then you added onto that some understanding of the qualitative display of quantitative information. As information warfare officers, that is a lot of what we do. It's a different flavor of information, and the metadata on the data might be tagged differently. It might be SIGINT data, or it might be environmental observations. It's going to be a different flavor, but how it crosses networks is the same. The METOC community has a high-performance computing center and accepted networks, right? So it's not as if there aren't exceptional commonalities across all of our tribes. If we all started our journey in information warfare with a foundational understanding of data and qualitative display, then you can specialize, you can build your tradecraft in your community on that foundation, and you have more of an interrelated language to speak with your fellow tribe members. And then the second thing I would add, if it's possible, is for all of the information warfare commands to start incorporating a community member from the other communities in their command structure. Fleet Numerical benefited immeasurably from having junior officers who were not METOC officers. There was an IP officer and an intelligence officer, and having those folks come in with a curiosity to ask questions and learn more. All of the junior officers, every junior officer I've ever met, almost to a T, is curious. And they're going to learn from each other, and they're going to ask questions, they're going to challenge each other. But that sort of osmosis level of learning and cross-collaboration gets you, I think, way farther ahead in the information warfare community of understanding the other communities to prepare you for that integration role.
If I may, Ms. North, I would like to expand a little bit on Doc's with the WTIs. I'm also a big fan of the WTIs. When I was chief of staff there, and one of the things that I would tell you about our WTI program is only going to be as good as the information that the people that come there that has been in the fleet. So what I'm getting at is all of you that have been in the fleet, for those that are in uniform, those areas where you have hard problems on those deployments and you need somebody to look at those problem sets, please get them to Nowittic. I'm pretty sure Admiral Select Braswell will be glad to get those, because he have WTIs that are on site that can look into those programs and start developing those TTPs. Because one of the things that I talk about too is you're only as good as the information you get. And so a lot of the times when the people that are at the WTI schoolhouse, they're going to be out of the fleet for a little while. So it's imperative for those of us that are out there on the fleet at the pointed spear, doing the work every day, to let them know where your problem sets are, so those TTPs can be developed and we can get them out globally to East Coast.
Thank you. All right, great responses, everybody. So as I'm looking across this audience, we have a lot of JOs, we have some enlisted folks, and as we already discussed, they are among the brightest people we have in our United States today, and we are so fortunate to have them in our Navy. So you have each been very successful in very difficult jobs. So what advice would you give to these up-and-coming Navy professionals as you look toward the next 10 years in IW?
I can start. So I think it elaborates a little bit on Andrew's point. And what has sort of been said, and as the future CWIT commander, it's certainly something that I'm trying to think through, because we have a lot of technologies. This whole room is filled with technologies that we could slam on a ship tomorrow or in 3 weeks or 5 years or whatever we are allowed to do. But that takes a lot of training. And the schoolhouse, quite frankly, can't crank training out quick enough, fast enough, happily enough, thoroughly enough, all the things. And so I actually have been thinking about this quite a bit, about how do we do that? And I went back to my Northwestern education, and I'm an applied mathematics major. And we don't do anything with applied mathematics except for going to METOC, which I didn't understand at the time, so I'm so sorry. And probably cryptology, didn't understand that either.
Missed an opportunity.
Still time. But we go into training centers and PhD levels, and we just teach more people, and we live in this microcosm of teaching math to people, which is great if you like math. But what it really made me think is it's an engineering science, and so it taught me how to think analytically and look at the problem analytically. So I don't know all the whiz-bang buttons to hit, perhaps, but I can think through it, and if I can logically step from A, B, C, D all the way down to Z, then I can think through that. And so I think maybe one of the things we need to think about is maybe focus less on the technology-specific aspects. We're going to need some of that, but if we can think through logically how to work the problem, then we'll be able to do it in the middle of the ocean with no help, no connectivity, just us out there floating. We'll be able to think through that. So that's one of the things I'm actually going to challenge my team and look to academia to help me think, how did I develop that thinking of critical thinking and analytic thinking to bring it back into the schoolhouses, so that when we get all of this technology on a ship, I don't have to have 57 million or however many vendors there are, different trainings, because we're never going to get there from that. And then the other thing I would say, also to your point, is we've got to get out of our silos. And so I loved your comment about cross-detailing, if you will, someone into an IW command, but I think that's really the heart of it. And so stepping outside, so having IW socials, that's not the N2 group over here and the N6 group over here and the groupies over here, and we probably forgot to invite the METOC, but we'll invite the METOC to come. So I think that's the other side of the training for the future, is that they've got to get out of their silos.
That's a good one. So I'll say two things. One, I absolutely agree with the focus on analysis. Ultimately, no matter what you do, thinking rigorously through problems, that's going to be something we'll all be responsible for. And, you know, we think about what kind of responsibilities the human in the loop is going to have as AI models help us as decision aids, right? I need to see people thinking human thoughts here. What are the trade-offs? What are the moral trade-offs? So having an analytic background, really quite helpful. The second piece is, I was on a panel one time in which we were asked to debate generalists versus technical experts, right? This comes up in the intel community all the time. And the answer is, of course, Admiral Clapperton said it just the other day, we will always need experts. We're not going to win with a bunch of people like me who just know a little bit about everything. we will also need experts. But as a community, we need both, right? We need people who are broad thinkers. We need people who can, look at two sides of, who have been at all of these different commands and understand, how to pull these things together. So either way, invest in yourself, right? Do the homework, become an expert. Great. There's a place for experts. But we also need leaders.
Yeah, I would say ditto on my earlier comment, but also have the thing I would encourage all of our junior warfare officers to do, or let the SecNav encourage you actually, is to have curiosity. The Navy is going to challenge you in ways that you never thought it could, and it will frustrate you in just as many ways. But if you have a curiosity for learning, the Navy, I feel like, has always rewarded me for that curiosity. It's rewarded me for having the courage to ask why, having the courage to speak up when I see something that isn't absolutely what I think it should be, because there's always going to be, in my experience, a leader that wants to hear what you have to say. And wants to take your enthusiasm and encourage others with it so that they can give you a better environment to work in than they had, so that all of our Navy gets better. No pressure, sir.
So I could cultivate that culture back in the Pentagon too. But it truly is exactly what we're trying to do here. And information warfare is just at the heart of everything we do. It's one thing to buy the ships and the aircraft and the submarines and all those sort of things, but if we can't interconnect all that and actually deliver, missiles on target from wherever and whatever platform it may be, up in the air and space and under the sea, it won't get done. But that all starts, I think, with a culture of innovation and creativity and vision and not holding people back from the crazy idea that they might actually have. So congratulations, well done.
Sir.
Did she inspire you to join the Navy? Okay. If you served before and you want to come back, please stand for a second. Just please stand. How many of you are veterans? Stand up, please. All right. Now raise your hand and repeat after me.
It's funny.
Awesome.
Well, two things that I would say to my enlisted and to my junior officers are, it's okay to be uncomfortable, and you got to be a life learner. I know that the training that we don't have it solidified where you always get the training, but I can just use Navy Net WARCOM for an example. And my predecessor, who's sitting out in the audience, now retired Captain Steve Career, he did a phenomenal job with how he's integrated industry into the Navy Net WARCOM. So right now we have some systems where we're bringing the cloud to our customers, and we actually have a cloud watch station. That cloud watch station, none of those people have been to school. That is stood up by military people along with industry right by their sides. And it is absolutely eye-watering to see those young sailors sitting right beside Microsoft, learning daily on how to do that. So that's the advice that I would give you. If you're on a ship, you got FSETs. Let's put FSETs out of business. Get beside them. And I used to always tell at every command in my last one in Bahrain at NCTS, I would come in and FSET had saved the day. And I would be like, XO, I'm okay with that. But did my sailor be right alongside them so the next time that we experience that exact same symptom, I don't expect to have to call that FSET in on a Saturday for overtime. I'm expecting that sailor on watch to be able to do it. So that's the advice that I have, is continue to be a lifelong learner And it's okay to be uncomfortable, but what are you doing when you're uncomfortable?
Those are great answers. Thank you. So let's have a little bit of fun for a second. Quick response. So Naval Aviation has Top Gun and Maverick. So what existing movie do you see has the information warfare version of Maverick?
I started off because I don't want nobody to steal my movie. I'm gonna start off with Tron.
Ooh,
You
yeah.
know, as advanced as we've gotten with AI and ML, the things that they do, we have to always, you just know that the insider threat is capable of being there. You know, and just like it was, but we have the tools with ML to be able to know where the attackers, and normally we're able to catch them. And it's, you know, it's really good to see things like that, to that opinion. And another one is Mr. Robot. Haven't any people heard of that one? Robot? Yeah. That's the cyber, you know, the cyber hygiene. So we also need to, you know, be able to continuously understand that the cyber hygiene and that individuals are there, and the things that we do to keep them out. So those are my two movies, Tron and Mr. Robot.
Nice. What else we got?
So I'm a huge Marvel fan. I love the whole series for the technology and the consideration of ethics that it brings to the conversation. But I would say out of those, Iron Man. Before the aliens, you know, we got into aliens, but a lot of the technology and the way that he started kind of building and tinkering, I feel like a lot of the tinkering, I mean, I know the Navy isn't a rich, spoiled billionaire, but we have some of those tendencies, and we tinker a lot with some things that we maybe home grow in our garage, and then we try to put some technology into it. So I love that movie.
I'm sorry, but you're wrong. I think everybody knows that the answer is Hunt for Red October, because all analysts know that they should be in the field. That's exactly.
I like it.
Actually, as I was thinking about this, it's probably not Hunt for Red October. It's probably Imitation Game, where you struggle in the dark against an insolvable problem, and then when you finally solve it, you can't tell anybody. So, Imitation Game.
Yeah, Doc and I talked about this a little bit. I think, and we were kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, and eventually went with really all movies could be the IW movie, because we're a part in everything. So I wrote down Midway when Tammy first asked us, because that's what came to mind. And I think Midway is a great example of that. And then as I was thinking about it last night, I thought, well, kind of Usual Suspects and Kaiser Sose, and just, I mean, you got to know your environment, you got to sense it, you got to feel it, you can deceive it, you can walk out of it, you have to know how to communicate through it. So I just was, and then I was sort of like, well, what about this? What about that? So I went with all, but those are the two if I have to choose. Nice.
I love it. Okay, those are great. Okay, so one really cool thing that I've seen happen lately is other warfare communities accepting information warfare in a way they never have before. So I would like each of you to kind of give me a minute or so on, in what ways have you seen other warfare communities accepting us, information warfare, and what do you think has been the key to that, to their acceptance?
What's been the key?
Let's start with Doc. You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll start. So, what I have seen at Echelon 2 has been, at Echelon 3 has been all of the strike group commanders coming to the fleet among their first stops and saying, I need more of what you can deliver in terms of long-range fires capability, in terms of sensing capability, in terms of access to authorities and space and cyber effects. How can I get that at the strike group level? Because that's where they start their ConOps. That's where they start their fleet maneuver. And so, when you have that sort of level of advocacy, the rest of the strike group falls into line. And certainly the fleet recognizes we've got to respond to that demand signal. And so every West Coast carrier that has come through for the last 2.5 years or whatever, the first thing they do is look at how can I get MTZ Alpha, how can I get a lot of these other new and brewing capabilities.
Christy?
So ditto what Doc said. I think Navy is sort of traditions based in some ways that are really good, in some ways that I would love to challenge, but the culture of command is a very important portion of what we do in the Navy, and I think that the other warfare areas, through the creation of the Information Warfare Commander, felt very much more like they understood what information warfare could bring, and they were more willing and able to come to an information warfare commander to ask for it, especially as what Doc said, when you have a strike group commander who is demanding it. And then what you find is that they're all exceptional practitioners in their warfare areas, and they have grown up understanding how the information environment affects their warfare area. And so you can have very intelligent and high-level conversations with them, and I think they appreciate not having to go to the to and go to the here and go. They appreciate having that conversation at the level at which the decision is being made.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I've seen this at two levels. A couple years back, I was actually EA at NAVI 4 when the concept came up of putting the IWC on the ARGs. And we started this, we were taking them out of hide. We didn't have a billet for them at all. And we told the SWO community, you know, we're going to give you one, but we need a billet. Well, we gave them one. That IWC completed, came back, and they said we don't have a billet for you yet. So at the time, the commander was like, oh, I don't know if we can sustain this. But just like my panel shipmate said, because of the breadth of knowledge that they brought and how phenomenal they did and the information that they provided them to do their mission, we got told, you will find me an IWC to go back to an ARG. So that was number one, because that's URL. The last one I'll leave with you is, you know, I've had the opportunity to do 05 Command and Major Command a couple times. I have the distinct pleasure of working for the 10th Fleet Commanders who were URLs, Admiral Gilday, Admiral Myers, and now Vice Admiral Clapperton. And I will tell you that all three of those URLs, some aviators, one was a SWO, they got it. I mean, Vice Admiral Clapperton talked to the IPs on Monday at a symposium, and he said, you are war fighters. Don't let anyone tell you you're not a war fighter. So just hearing that from URLs that we're needed, but the one thing about it is we got to continue to deliver. Information is powerful. Information has to be on time. It has to be right. And we got to be able to put missiles on foreheads. And if we want to keep the reputation, we got to continuously, we have processes in place. We screen all our IWCs. We got to make sure we're screening the right people to ensure that we keep the leverage we have, that when we go out there to be the IWC, that the strike group commanders and the other URLs continues, because they like what they see, but it's up to us to continuously build on that to give them what they need.
And Tammy, so I would say the Marines. They really use the commercial off the shelf. They give it to very junior Marines and officers, and they go out in the field, and with sometimes no other help from the ship or anyone else, they make it happen to support the ground commander, to support the air commander, whomever it is. That creativity was awe-inspiring. Marines also, I think I have learned, and so I apologize if there's any Marines in the audience or if I mess this up, but they don't really take no for an answer well. And so they're either going to go over you, around you, or under you, and they're going to keep going and keep pressing. And I think it's to the point that's been made by the panel, that drive and that commitment, and then having that technology. Now, there are down order effects, which I understand, but that piece I've been very impressed with and was fascinated to watch it. And then the other thing I would say is our Five Eye partners, as well as our NATO, Japan, Korean partners out there. And I think the key to that is working with us and learning with us, and sometimes from us, in order to do it, so that where it's taking us years after years, sometimes they're able to come up to speed quicker because they're ingesting what we've done, and then they're moving forward with us together, not just interoperably, but interchangeably.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. So we only have about 10 minutes left of this panel or so I would like to take some audience questions.
Hi, thank you. Steve Weeman, work for Booz Allen Hamilton on the Mock TICOM program in Suffolk. So we're here to help, and things are going well. From the mock perspective, for any warfare perspective, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? And so we're trying to get at the heart of measuring readiness, operational readiness. We're getting to the man, train, equip piece as a TICOM. Any thoughts on how do you measure operational effectiveness at the mock? In aviation, you drop a bomb, you do your flight ops, you land on a carrier. Very measurable products. From a career aviator, from an IW, how do we measure effectiveness specifically at the mocks and to Admiral Boyle and how well he's doing that? Any thoughts from your perspectives? Over.
I do. That's a great question. And as we think about how we standardize mocks and how we think about, we use this phrase all the time, the mock as a weapon system. Okay, great. Well, is the mock doing well or poorly? Traditionally, as I said earlier, we certify mocks in command post exercises. Can I build a decision support matrix and then execute an order writing campaign? What I haven't demonstrated is my ability to write an order that actually produces effects on the battle. And so ultimately, I think that's where you have to drive this. You look at the rehearsal events in which we actually have to produce effects, coordinate authorities, and then there's a virtuous cycle in which a commander that receives this order through thin line comms and can't respond back, at the end of the exercise says, I didn't understand this. This was terrible. And if we can't produce that measurable outcome, then we fail. So I think that's how you have to drive this. You don't just look at the next Keen Edge or the next PAC Sentry. You have to look at some of these other events.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
I would also say on the recipient end of a mock, there are great aspects of bureaucracy, and there are great aspects of having a battle rhythm and a planning process. But when it drives excessive amounts of work and rework because the decision isn't arrived at, we need to be better at querying why a decision wasn't supported, so that we can find the right process to support decision making. So decision effectiveness might be a better term, a measure to use than mock effectiveness, because mocks are about coordinating information and pushing decisions. And so what are the decisions that the mock commander has to make, and how often are they making them, and were they supported with the right information on time to make that decision, and if not, why? And then how does that trickle then down to the operational commanders who are trying to implement those decisions?
Okay, Lieutenant, do you have a question?
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Kaylee Kornick. I'm actually an executive assistant to Captain McGee at NavNet Warcom. We talked a lot about training and lifelong learning. I'd like to know explicitly from each of you, how are you empowering your sailors, your chiefs, and your junior officers to have that lifelong learning? How are you empowering them to do better at their job and continue to be what makes the Navy the greatest Navy in the world? Thank you.
So I'll start at the fleet. We have representatives from NGA, from ONI, from other agencies that help me keep abreast of training opportunities, and it's really just an investment, right? I have to make some hard decisions about keeping people on the watch longer or whatever that happens to be, so that I can invest in training. That's the training side. The education side, I can't tell you how many applications I have written or letters of recommendation I've written for all my junior officers and enlisted personnel who want to continue to go out in town and pursue whatever degree. I don't care. It's the process of learning, the process of understanding how to think. That's most important. So those two things, just personal investment.
Like Doc, I would say I don't say no. I figure out how we can accept the risk, and then I lead by example. So I just finished the space course at NPS. It's at times very challenging. I tried to do it during Com2X and ARG-MUX, and if you haven't done the OFRP and tried to take a master's level class, I strongly don't recommend it, but try communicating with your professor and you can push it off a semester. But so that's what I would say. Is to lead by example and then assume the risk. And like Doc, I try not to say no, and I try to encourage them by asking what their goals are and asking them where they are in their training.
Yes, I think it's just constant engagement. I believe in walking around by leadership, and that's one of the things I do with my team is I engage with them daily. You have your all hands calls, and I also do a thing what I call CO's Power Hour. So every 2 weeks, I'm available for an hour for anyone to come talk to me about anything they want to, and that's when you learn, where the seams and gaps are, or where people that's needed. And just like my colleague Sarah said, is you take those risks. I even go back as far as when I was in my last job. I mean, it was at the tip of the spear in Bahrain. We had the Witty course, the WTI course. It's 10 weeks long. My XO looked at me like, you crazy, sir. We just can't. I mean, that's 10 weeks somebody's going to be gone. But I told them that, the risk weighed with what that individual was going to be able to gain professionally and personally outweighed it. And we did it. I was there for 2 years. We had somebody in the Witty course every single cycle for 10 weeks. And they came back and they delivered. And even at NetWorkCom, my predecessor will tell you, we had some things that we had to send someone out to help out a unit. Who did we send? We sent a Witty. He performed phenomenally. I mean, during my turnover process, he was awarded a Navy Combination Medal, a Spot Achievement Medal. Didn't even know it because of that. And that same Witty was just placed into the main planning cell for Keen Edge 24. And I would go up there daily and sit with the team, and the questions I would ask, I would look around at my Witty and say, what do you think? And that individual delivered. So just like they said, we have to, because this market, sailors are leaving us every day because if they don't feel valued, they want to serve their country, but if they don't feel valued or they don't feel people are going to invest in them, they're gonna walk out, and we're going to lose that talent.
I would say that education or training doesn't necessarily have to be a school or a Navy course. Just I know that I probably overestimated the amount of understanding and expertise that my junior officer corps had in basic things like the Navy strategy. What is the purpose of the Navy? Have you looked at Title 10 of U.S. Code? The very foundational things that we raise our hands and, swear an oath for, a lot of folks haven't actually just looked at the text. And so taking the time when you can, and it's a very difficult thing to carve that time out, to just make sure that they foundationally understand some of those very critical documents, because whether you know it or not, those things are guiding your life. And so it's really important to understand that. So it doesn't have to always be in the form of a school or a course.
Okay, I think we probably have time for one more question, if there's anybody else out there.
I said I wasn't going to ask one, but I'm going to ask one. Hi, Steve Correa. I'm a small business owner. Can you guys talk about mentorship, and specifically somebody in your career that either mentored you, that you found a value in why, or somebody that you mentored that you were able to impact in a positive way? Thank you.
Okay, I'll start off. I remember when I was at that juncture of, I'm prior enlisted. I had just made chief, and I often tell the story of who recruited me to the wardroom. It wasn't an officer. It was a senior chief petty officer. He came to my desk one day, and he said, Kelvin, have you thought about being an LDO? I said, no, senior, I love being a chief. He said, well, I've watched you, and you have more to offer. And I think that, even as a senior chief petty officer, we're going to definitely lose a good chief in the mess. But you need to think about, where you're more valuable. And I was like, I had to go talk about it. And a lot of you might have known the name. It was back when it was Sink Lant Fleet. I was working for Miss Monica Shepard. Matter of fact, Eric Markland was also on the team there at the time. And I was going to stay a chief. And I remember Miss Shepard coming to my desk and said, RMC, where's your package? I'm like, so I went home and I talked to my wife. I said, you know, I really like being a chief, but I mean, I got a SDS telling me that she wants my package, and I don't know what to do. But I say all of that to say that I wouldn't be where I was at today if it wasn't for a senior chief petty officer. So you never know the impact that you're making as a mentor. And just because you might want to stay in the chief mess or you might want to stay as an officer, and even when people come talk to me today, the first question I ask them is, why don't you want to be a senior chief? Why don't you want to be a senior chief? Why don't you want to be a master chief? Because we need good ones. And I only do that just to make sure that their heart is in the right place. Because if you're not doing it for the right reasons, you know, it could be, and I have seen it. When I served on my 04 milestone on the carrier, I'm just going to put it out there and keep it real. I was very disappointed in some of the officers that came from the enlisted ranks on the ship, especially those that came out of the chief mess. Thought that life was supposed to be, you know, a lot easier. I'm that chief. You know, you have to come into it, and when you go into that wardroom, you're going into an organization where what you did in the past, it's not what you did in the past, it's what you've done for me lately.
So I have not a similar story, but my mentor is now retired Master Chief Petty Officer, who I met as Ensign Montgomery when he was a first-class petty officer. And there has been no one person who has been more instrumental in my professional development and career than that person. And I just talked to him maybe last week. So the thing that I appreciate the very most about him, and I hope you all can find mentors who will give you this, is the straight skinny. So he has never been about building up my ego. Mostly it's about tearing it down, which is what you need. And has always had the right words at the right time. And it's just been such a credit to my career and my life. And I think about all of the people that he has impacted through his mentorship of me. And I try to tell him that, and then I don't think he likes to hear that very much, but I know it means a lot to him. So I think that our senior enlisted mess is just an absolute, I would say, it's just a gem. It's just an uncovered gem. You know, they don't really get the credit that they deserve sometimes.
So I have a couple of ways to answer this question. The first has to do with what I see as this almost unbroken string of mentorship, of which I am, the most recent recipient. When I think about mentors who have worked with me, they themselves have had fantastic 1830 mentors. My particular, heritage here goes back to Admiral Sharp, who worked with one of my mentors, Ed Padinsky, who worked with J. Todd Ross, and this whole line of folks that keep this spirit of mentorship alive through the Naval Intelligence Professionals Organization and lots of other things that we do within the service itself. So I am absolutely a recipient. But the flip side of this is one of my toughest but best jobs was I acted as our community detailer. Going to Millington, suddenly you have to mentor 1,800 people. Daily conversations with people who are really at a crossroads. Every time you call the detailer, every time you're working with that organization, you're at a crossroads. What am I going to do? How is this going to change my life? The lives of my children, all of this sort of business. So I loved those conversations. It was rodeos out here. It was one of the toughest jobs I ever had. I was happy to walk away from Millington, but certainly I know that's the most impactful job I've ever had, working with the entire community.
I think there's always been a question of who's your mentor, and I, for a long time, didn't really think I had one. I had leaders that I would call and ask questions of, but asking a leader a question and asking a mentor a question is very different. And so I actually got out of the Navy in 2007. I'd seen the world, blah, blah, blah. I asked, I suppose, a mentor at the time, but I thought he was just a leader. If I said, I'm going to get out, he said, great. And I walked away. And it wasn't until about a year later till I circled back to someone who was in uniform. And I said, I think I'm going to ask for the job at McDonald's if she asks, what do you want with your cheeseburger? And this gentleman pulled me by the back of my collar and threw me in the back corner and said, I'll order your cheeseburger. But it was that gut moment that I knew that they were a mentor. And so I think, one, how do you find a mentor is when your gut speaks to you about it. And then I think the other thing, and then a leader can become a mentor. It cannot be that. And I think alternative to Captain McClellan and sort of then hearkening back to the when I came into the intelligence community and did my lat transfer, is that I've sought mentors from each of the different pillars, and not really sought, but I guess I've sort of just fell into my proverbial lap. But is that has helped, and so it's not one person for me; it's several people. And then I think the other thing, now that I come to recognize that I am probably mentoring people, and I say come to recognize because I think sometimes people are mentoring without even knowing that they're mentoring, and so answering the email, answering the call, being that availability is really where I think that mentorship then starts and lays the foundation. It may last, it may not last. You may disconnect for months, weeks, days, years, whatever, but that they may come back. And so being ready and on the recipient end of that would be, I think, my answer to your question.
All right, everybody. Thank you for this time that you spent with us today, and thanks to all these leaders on this panel. You are amazing, and it was an honor to sit here with you today. And I look forward. We'll all be standing by afterwards for individual questions if you have any. So thank you.
Here, here.